are we, in some unexplainable manner, 100% aware of this final journey we take in the moment death is medically declared? Or is it just the mind playing tricks on you? Traditionally, death has been determined by medical profession using basic methods. These methods took the form of using either a heart or lung function criteria for death. To declare one's death, physicians would feel for the pulse, listen for breathing, hold a mirror before the nose to test for condensation, and look to see if the pupils were fixed. But as medical technology developed, a gap began to form between traditional cardiopulmonary standards and our conceptions of death. The spirit world became both an accepted fact for many and a topic for many scientific researchers. I am your host, Maria Anna van Driel, and you are listening to The Next Truth, where science and myth meet. And this week I'm speaking with the author of The Wonder of You, Lynn Kathleen Russell, about if near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences are our connection with this vast space we have become familiar with as the universe.
Lynn, welcome to The Next Truth, where science and myth meet. We have spoken to each other via Facebook and via email. Now we finally can chat face to face. In all the time that we are connected via the magazine, I have read pieces of your books. Also the articles that you have donated to The Next Truth. When you read your work, your readers can understand that you have walked a remarkable path in what in one way or another has shown you and let you experience the lesser things in life. Do you think that these moments have, driven you towards an understanding from what is not seen by the naked eye, but merging with classical reality we are living in?
Yes, I understand your question. And I think that I was almost guided to be where I am today. I had, when I was 5 months old, I had a near-death experience, and I think that was put me on the road. And so I'd had a number of experiences and didn't know that this is where I was going to end up. But one experience I want to tell you quickly about, and I'll be fast, I promise. I was a family counselor, and I'm writing a report in my office. I'm all alone, there's nobody else around. And I'm writing a report on one of my families, and I hear a voice very clearly in my ear saying, "I want to use you." And that frightened me, that terrified me.
I can imagine that.
Yeah, my first reaction was no bloody way. Because I was sure I was going to mess up, you know. And I also thought, am I going nuts? And then I thought, well, I was fine 5 seconds ago, so obviously I'm fine now. But I just didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so what I said was, you tell me what you want me to do, and I'll decide whether I do it or not. And but didn't hear a word, nothing, absolutely no reaction at all. And then 4 years later, and this was 1984, I met with my daughter and one of her friends, and we're in a donut shop, and the voice comes back and says, "I still want to use you, you know." And so I said, okay, fine. But I was burned. I was burned to a crisp. I had nothing to give. I was wiped out. And the voice said, "Don't worry, I'm preparing you now." And that was the end of it. And I haven't heard any more voices. I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to do, what I am doing, or would I have done this anyway without the voice? Who knows?
You say at the age of 5 months, you had a
Yes.
near-death experience. And
Yes.
well,
Yes.
I can sometimes not even remember what I have eaten last night. But 5 months, that is extremely young.
Yes. Well, the story is that we lived in a very cold, it was during the Depression, at the end of the Depression. And we lived in an old building, and it was freezing in there, just terrible. They kept the heat really, really cold. Matter of fact, they only put the heat on once a day, and that was it for an hour, and then it had to last for the rest of the day. And this is Canada.
Yeah.
So it was very, very cold. And my brothers both got got whooping cough. So, and they were both older. And so I got whooping cough as well. And then I got pneumonia in both lungs. And so I had double pneumonia and whooping cough. And so that was how I died. I mean, I don't remember the experience. I can't tell you what happened to me at 5 months. I just know that I had died and come back.
That was told by your mother or your father or your brothers? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. You say you were almost guided in there. Well, just before I went online with you, I was watching a video from Professor Fisher, who is a philosopher from the University of California, Riversdale. And he was also talking about guiding. What do you think from your perspective, from your point of view? Who is guiding people when they have a near-death experience?
That's a little bit difficult to explain. I believe that everything is one, and that's the crux of everything that I teach is oneness. But because we are separate, guides will separate themselves from the source and come to us. And yes, we do all have guides helping us to giving us message. I'm not sure if they're right here or if they're beyond this level, but they certainly are they give us messages all the time. And don't do that, or that little voice that sometimes you ignore. I often ignore it, and then I think it's just me, and then I'm in trouble. I'm sorry that I ignored it.
You're talking about this little voice in your head. Well, some people call it within an instant schizophrenia, or you are in a stressful moment, and that is the reason why the brain is filling in certain gaps or is translating certain sound from the outside as in a voice. Now, I was thinking that this is a personal story from me, and this happened. Well, I think it was 2 years or a little bit less. I was working on photonic behaviors, on waves, on light waves, and etc. I was just minding my own business, writing a little bit of science and how the light is behaving, etc. And then suddenly in my mind, it was not in my mind. It was as if the voice was surrounding me completely. And it said plain, simple, and very clear, "Welcome home."
Oh.
And that frightened me like, well, the bleep. So, and I don't know if it was related to what I was writing or that I was stressy in my head, but yeah, that happened. So I understand it. But do you think that, well, some people are more into the category of schizophrenia or stressful minds instead of hearing a guide.
When I heard my voice, I wasn't stressed at all. And I have had a spiritual experience that I talk about in the beginning of my book, and I was just doing household chores and nothing, so I don't think so. I think that we would like to put it down to stress or voices from or sounds from outside.
More easy to understand, more easy to explain instead of being a guy from the beyond realms.
Yeah, exactly. And that makes it feel more comfortable for it, because then, well, we're not little nuts, But well, you wonder though. I know.
Yeah, I was looking around. Who was talking? No, you can't. What was your voice? The voice that you hear, male or female?
Sometimes it's male, and sometimes it's neutral. There's no gender. It could be a low woman's voice, or it could be a high or more feminine man's voice. I just can't tell.
The voice that I heard was clearly male.
Ah, okay.
So I don't know if it have any significant meaning. It was the only time, and I never heard it again. But
yeah, but we each take a role, a very active role, in creating the existence we're in and any afterlife. And so we would create the voice that's most comfortable for us.
Well, yeah, it was comfortable. Yeah. It wasn't that I was running out of the house. Okay, yeah, it creeped me out, but I wasn't running like a hyper guinea pig or something. But you also stated to me and mentioned to me that you are an expert in near-death experiences. You corrected me because I said that you, in my questions, that you have many cases, investigated many cases of near-death, but it is almost about 2,500 cases that you have investigated?
Yes.
How do you investigate a near-death experience?
Well, how I did it, and certainly other people would do it in a different way. But how I did it was I was on the website NDERF, which stands for Near Death Experience Research Foundation. And I was on their chat line that's not there anymore. And Dr. Long asked for someone who would volunteer to do research for them. And I had just retired. I had nothing left to do at this point. So I said, hey, my turn, and put my hand up. And so what happened was people have been sending in all kinds of cases to Dr. Long and his site, his and Jody's site, his wife Jody. And they've been sending their events and their experience. And when they do their experience, and then they do a huge questionnaire after that. And the questionnaire is very intense. And then, so what I would do is I would take how many people saw the light, how many people went to an Earth-like place.
You were looking for a pattern.
Yeah, so I'm categorizing the different events that people had. So that's what I did. And then Dr. Long used it in his book, Evidence of the Afterlife, The Science of Near-Death Experiences. And so that's the research in there was what I did.
Now you say the science of the afterlife of near-death experiences. I have watched recently the movie The Discovery, and that is about a medical doctor, I believe it is, and his son. And they have a facility, and they also research near-death experience, but also if the afterlife is real, that it really exists. So they create a device And by means of the fact that they can prove that there is an afterlife, people commit suicide in the movie. I mean, do you think that when science proves that there is definitely an afterlife in where we have an awareness, that we also can be aware of what is happening in the realm we are living in right now, that people will step over that border, that they will cross over willingly because there is an afterlife? Do you think that something like that can happen? So, because if, then a scientific proof is dangerous.
That's a good point. That's a good question. I have suicide in all of my books. I talk about it because it's such an important topic. And one of the big messages in suicide that I want everybody to know is whatever you are trying not to have to put up with or to deal with, and you're trying to get away from, you don't. You don't get away from whatever that issue is, that you have to face it and live through it and experience it. And so what happens is, if you have committed suicide in a way that your body is still functioning, for example, pills or something like that. So if the body is still able to sustain life, you are sent back. If, however, the body can no longer sustain life, you've done something to the body that it's destroyed, you will be reborn into a new life and have to put up with exactly the same thing that you were trying to avoid. Because the deal is that you have to decide to deal with it without committing suicide.
So what you're saying with suicide, and I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I don't think that investigating near-death experiences, well, we shouldn't play psychiatrist, but no, you should not commit suicide. You rather talk to people, or trying to talk to people, explain it so that you don't have to cross over. But
the other thing is, just quickly, is that there is an inborn fear of death within us to not commit suicide. You know, like we really don't, we'll avoid death to any degree. And so most people wouldn't commit suicide even if it was proven. And I think that's the base of what you were asking.
Except for the experience you had at your 5 month, being 5 months old, did you have any other experiences, personal, in being well, close to death, or perhaps an out-of-body experience?
I had a very small death experience in 1972. I was very, very ill. It was March. I was sick, really, really sick. And so and 1 minute I'm in my bed and the next minute I'm in the tunnel. I'm in a tunnel. And this particular tunnel for me looked like a smoky kind of gray place. And there's a man beside me. And I'm thinking he's my guide, but he's dressed like a priest. I didn't have a religion. I'm not religious and never have been. So I've studied all the religions in the world, but I have never become a religion. And so I'm wondering, why have I got a priest with me?
Yeah, okay, yeah. That's a bit odd. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, anyway, he didn't answer because I asked him, and he just sort of smiled, and he thought it was a bit funny. Maybe I was seeing him as a priest and he wasn't really, I don't know. And maybe that's what was funny. But anyway, the point is that he didn't answer me. And so we're both going up, and I just saw the pinprick of light at the end of this tunnel, and a big booming voice. This time it was male, very male.
Okay.
This big booming voice that came down and said, "Take her back, it's not her time." And so the man with me said, "But she died." And the voice said, take her back. She has much left to do. And the next thing I know, I'm back in bed. That was it.
Now you say you go up, meaning in religion terms, you go to heaven.
Yeah,
But there
yeah.
is in religion terms also a down
Yeah.
in the terms of hell.
Sure.
Have you, during your investigations of these cases, also noticed negative reports from people who went
Yes,
down?
yes. And let me just talk about the up and down, and then I'll talk about the negative experiences. Keep in mind that we take an active role in creating the experience that we have. It doesn't mean that we didn't die. It means that we are creators, and we actually create or help create. We're part of the whole creation process. So when people go to up, that's because they think up is the direction they should be going, not necessarily
Well,
that
rather than down.
it could be sideways. Yeah, exactly. The people, and now the negative experiences. People who have had negative experiences have them because they think that that's what they should have. They are the ones who are creating this for themselves, like I just said. And so they create the hell experience. And I'll tell you how I know that. And I mean every single one of the negative experiences that I research, every single one of them got out of there. Okay, they were taken out. And how they were taken out is either their guides came and took them, but usually they pleaded, like, get me out of here. And then they somehow would be brought out. One fellow was not religious at all. He was an atheist, but he remembered a song when he was in this hell place. He remembered a song that Jesus loves me, yes, I know. And so he started singing that, and he was brought out. The point of that is that when he got out, when he was on the positive side, I guess we could call it, and he was talking to his guides and saying, what was that all about? His guide said to him, that you did that. You created that yourself. That's what you thought you deserved, or where you thought you belonged.
So you think that these negative experiences are more our own creation, that rather than a lesson that we are learning from somebody or something that is trying to teach us when we come back how to live a better life.
Yeah.
That the negative experiences are meant for that.
No, I don't think they're meant for that. No, I think these people thought that they deserved that. But let me explain, because it sounds like the whole thing is made up, that it's all made up in our own minds, okay? And that's not the case, because there are many things that happen to everyone. Everyone that has a death experience experiences universal experiences that everyone shares. And so it's those universal experiences that we can build on to know that they are real.
And these investigations, these experiences, these stories, these moments, these life-changing moments you describe in your book.
What happens is that people have a life review. That's one of the things that, let me tell you a few things. One of the things that happens to almost every single person when they go to the other side is they feel that everything is one. They feel that they are everything they see, including down here. They feel that they are the universe, okay, that they're attached or connected or one with the universe. So that's a very important one, and that one is universal. Another one that's universal is they can see 360 degrees. They can also hear and see us and know what we're feeling or thinking. They can travel with thought. All they have to do is think about something and they're there instantly. Oh, conversations are telepathic. They don't use voice or words. So these are things that everybody has. There's actually 13. And because everybody has them, not every state, like 2,500 of my cases, but there's thousands and millions that can't have all made up the same thing, is what I'm saying. So to me, that's a validation that they are real. The life review changes people. They become completely different people after their life review because they see that what we have, our jobs and the houses and the cars and all that is irrelevant. It's what kind of human beings we are. That's what's most important. And how do we treat our fellow human beings? That's what they're judged on. And they judge themselves, by the way. They're not judged from somewhere else. Their own judgment of themselves says, I wasn't a very good person, or I was a wonderful person, whichever. So it all comes from within. And that changes them so that when they come back here, they become more caring about the world. They become more loving and wanting to do good in the world. And so
these are the stories people bring back when they come back. But I can imagine that when you truly cross over to another realm, to another dimension, that your perspective of, everything we know here completely changes, but that your awareness is also changing, and thus ook your communication. And I was thinking about, poltergeists probably are in realm A, while an angel is in realm B, so that the poltergeist in that realm, in that dimension, needs to knock on things and etc., while an angel can communicate telepathic, perhaps, maybe. So you are telling the stories of people who came back. Yeah. But do you think that when you really cross over, and definitely cross over, that it changes, that these are two different things?
No, because people who stay on the other side, and I've fortunately been able to pick up on people who have been there for hours and hours and hours. They've been dead for like 13, 14 hours. In fact, the longest one was 29 hours, and that's recorded. 29 recorded hours.
And then they came back.
He came back
after brain damage. That is remarkable.
No, he was great. And that's the strange part, is that they say after 4 minutes that there'll be brain damage, and yet there's no brain damage with these people. So that's amazing. That's amazing. But people who have been there a very long time are able to have a much deeper experience than people who have just been there for a minute or two. And so what happens is that in the beginning, they see themselves as human. They carry a human body and they meet other humans and they hug and kiss and do human things. But after a little while, they start to realize that they aren't, that they are energy, and that this huge ball of light that we keep getting told about, that beautiful light, that they're a part of that light, and so they enter into that light and they become the light, and they start to actually create with the light, and they are the light. And that's where the whole oneness thing comes from. It's really very beautiful what happens at that deeper level.
Some people say that when you die, when you cross over, you go back to, like you say, to the state you were born in, is energy. Is it perhaps a possibility that when we are being born, we come into the light and we see our mother, And we are being put on the chest of a mother, and that is safe haven, that is warmth, that is love, caring, and etc. It is safe. Is it perhaps an idea or a possibility or an explanation that we are recalling our birth in the moment that we die?
No, not necessarily. Okay. A lot of people do go through the tunnel, but many people don't go through any tunnel at all. They find themselves suddenly in outer space. They may find themselves in blackness, just a void with nothing around them. And it's not necessarily that it's a recreation of their birth. The other thing is that when they get to the other side, they often will see gardens and buildings and all kinds of beautiful. It's always beautiful, and everything there will send love to them. The rocks, the water, the trees, the buildings. They feel love coming back to them because they are creating it themselves.
That sounds as if everything in that particular surrounding contains the same frequency. I'm sorry, I still have that scientific mind.
No, that's okay, because people will see a garden, but the garden is always different. It's an individual's, like each person's garden is their garden.
You say, and many other people say, that there is an extreme bright light at the end of the tunnel, but somehow you can look into it. I was thinking, and this is the scientific idea of my mind, of how you might call it, is when I look at neuroscience and biology, the mind has different, thingies in there. For instance, the pineal gland and the colostrum, for instance. When you die, there could be that there is a lot of neuron activity in there, the body and the mind fighting against the moment of crossing over. It wants to stay here. It's like a physical and a mental fight. Heaven and hell is really rising inside of you, so that there is a stressed moment in the brain that is creating that much electricity, that much almost nuclear power, that the pineal gland is being triggered, and that it is releasing certain kind of chemicals into the midbrain. The colostrum in that little thin sheet in the brain is spreading out and emitting all electrons. So there is, power for a whole city to go in there, and that's the mixture, the merging of chemicals and electricity is providing a holographic projection in the midbrain, and that moment of that holographic projection is creating the moment of the tunnel and like you said, the garden or the birds, etc.
Yeah, and many people and doctors certainly talk about the death experience being the breaking down of the brain, or what you've just described. It could be they think maybe the chemicals that maybe the person has been into drugs themselves, or medications and drugs that they've been given in the hospital during their whatever.
The medicals that I mean is not like synthetic medicals, chemicals, but produced by the pineal gland, for instance, just pure natural chemicals that is created in your mind, in your brain.
The argument is, first of all, with the brain. Let's look at the brain. The brain starts to break down within minutes of the heart stopping to pump blood up to the brain. Okay, so that's one thing. Then there's still activity in the brain stem, way at the back, between 45 minutes, half hour to 45 minutes after death. So after that, nothing is happening in the brain. But the person can have a death experience for hours and hours, like I just said. and come back with their brain working perfectly fine. There's one, I told you, 29 hours. And the story is that he was a sailor and he got poison coral, I think it was, in his foot. So his buddies got him back to the doctor, but by the time he got there, he was dying. And so the doctor hooked him up to an EEG, and he died, and they left him. The doctor went away and left him, and for some reason left the EEG machine running. It was a ship's doctor, and he just went out and left it running. 29 hours later, he came back, and the machine was still running, and this man sat up, and he was back, just like that.
That is nightmare stuff.
Another one is more common, and this happens frequently, is people waking up in the morgue in the state of rigor mortis. And
that is more freaky than the first one, really. If I would be a guard in a morgue, and I would hear, there are movies about this subject, and so I have watched a couple of them, but it would freak me out when I saw that red light or that bell ringing, and no, I would not go. And I would say, okay, I will phone in and I close the doors. Nope.
Well, what happens with these people, I think they do get freaked because they're still frozen. And it takes 12 to 14 hours for full rigor mortis to set in. And these people are so frozen that they can't move to let people know that they're back here. And so, I mean, there's several stories of how people finally got people to the attendants to recognize that they were alive. But the point is that between 12 and 14 hours of death cannot be chemicals in the brain. It can't be any of those explanations. To me, there are other proofs, like, for example, information they bring back that they couldn't possibly know, or seeing things and witnessing things and telling others about it that they couldn't possibly have seen when they weren't even there.
You just said that there is a small part of the brain even though it's low, it's still functioning and thus probably is recording. So if people come back with information that they not should have known because it is not possible, probably the brain is still recording it and is translating it in the bigger brain, and that is restored in there.
What bigger brain are you talking about?
Well, you were talking about a little, what was it? The stem?
For a half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. We're talking 14 hours.
Well, probably it's like when you are asleep. You hear stuff outside, a car coming by, or a fox crying, or etc. Your brain is picking this up, but not with full consciousness.
Okay, but they were pronounced dead from a doctor. Their organs had stopped working. Everything was gone. There was no activity at all.
Well, this made me think about when I was rafting. I believe it was last year. I was thrown out of the boat into the water. It was wild water. So I was in there. I couldn't breathe. The water was cold. And somehow my brain was separatedly functioning from my body. I was climbing out of the water, fighting for my life because I didn't want to drown. It's one of the worst things I can imagine, to be dying in water. So I was picked up out of the water, climbing on shore, and my brain was telling me, you are dead. My brain didn't want to work anymore, but my body was like an automatic pilot. My brain was saying, no, you're dead. But my body was doing stuff that I wasn't even thinking about. And so probably maybe there's a thing that the brain is...
How long were you under the water? A minute?
I don't know, and I don't want to know anymore. It was a frightening experience. I don't want to know it anymore. No,
See,
okay.
and then, wait a minute.
But not that long. Not that long.
There's another thing called a fear-death experience. And
Okay.
fear-death experiences are almost miracles. We would look at those and go, whoa. And they are things when people are so close to death, that an accident or something is coming at them. And so they'll have a quick death experience and then come back. But they haven't died, the accident for some, and I say the miracle part because suddenly they've got a truck that's coming at them head on, and the next thing they know, they're down the street in their car at a stoplight.
Okay.
So that's the weird ones.
So
Fear.
I experienced probably a moment of fear then.
Yes, extreme fear.
I am happy that there is a name for it because I was thinking that I was going crazy.
No.
My body was reacting like a robot. Really, I didn't even have any control over it anymore. So, but anyway, you are the author of the book The Wonder of You, but I mentioned it wrong. There is another title.
Well, it's just that there's so many books called The Wonder of You that there's a list, and then
Okay.
there's Elvis Presley song too. So the title of the book is The Wonder of You: What the Near-Death Experience Tells You About Yourself. And so now it's second edition. I've done lots and lots of work with it. The first book was primarily what happened at death. The second book takes it a step farther because I learned so much when I was doing this research, and that's what I wanted to tell people about. And so the second book is talking mostly about consciousness and our connection to consciousness, but it comes from the near death, so it's linked. So the second book is called the same name, The Wonder of You, and it's just a second edition. And it's available on Amazon and quite a few other places as well, online distributors.
Do you think there is a difference between near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences, or is it more like a one, or maybe a sequel?
Well, people do get those mixed up, and they're quite different because a death experience is death. You die. You're not alive anymore. Nothing's working. And but an OBE, your body's still working. Everything is functioning quite fine. Even people in comas, their bodies are working, and they can have a death experience, but their body is still functioning. So it's not a death experience. I mean, technically it's not a death experience, if you put it that way.
So all your personal experiences and the investigations, the 2,500 cases that you have investigated about near-death experiences, together with Dr. Long, or Professor Long.
Yeah. Dr. Long. He's an oncologist.
Okay. And all this has influenced you to write your books.
Yeah. I just learned so much. And the other part of that story is that I've studied from the childhood, well, not childhood, mid-teens. I started to study about different kinds of religions, and I've just studied religions all my life. So I had questions, not just religion, spirituality too, and just investigating, a spiritual seeker, I guess. And so there were pieces that weren't quite fitting, but the near-death experiences that I studied just put them all together. I want to tell you some that I recommend people read. And one is a woman called Mira, M-I-R-A. Her learning experience is absolutely fabulous, just beautiful. And the other one is Hafur, and I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly, but it's Hafur. And those two women, their experiences are just blow you away, kind of. you know, but a lot of learning, a lot of good. There's hundreds more too, by the way, but those are the two that stand out in my mind.
You speak about religion. I have spoken with Professor Frankie McAndrew, and he has donated in the September edition of The Next Truth an article which, and he spoke also in a podcast about how that religion can influence the ghosts that you see. That was also the title of his article. And do you think that near-death experiences, or what we experience during an out-of-body experience, is related in somehow with the religion that we have?
Yeah, I don't know about the out-of-body, because traditionally out-of-body experiences, there's two types. There's astral projection, which is staying out for long periods of time and you're doing it on purpose, you're deliberately leaving. And the other one is OBEs, which are usually you're out of your body, it's completely spontaneous, you're looking down at yourself and the next thing you're back in again. So it only lasts a minute or two, and they cannot be death experiences. But as far as our consciousness affecting the kind of experience we have, absolutely, most of the time, not all of the time. I have one lady, I think she's in my book, I know that. I think her name is Peggy, I'm not sure. But anyway, she was a devout Christian, spent all of her life working with the church and so on and so forth, had a death experience that was completely different from what she'd learned. And when, what, you know, and that's happened to more than one. I mean, I'm using her as an example, but there are priests and ministers who've had death experiences that have learned that this is not anything like what they've taught.
I can imagine that when a priest has a near-death experience, and he is or she is being taught all their lives that, well, the typical heaven and hell and etc., and angels and demons, and then they step into a realm, into a dimension which is or the complete opposite or something completely different, that these people stop working, or at least are going to talk about something completely different when being in church.
And they usually leave their church because what they experience is so different from what they learned when they were dead that they leave the church and they'll take up another profession. And a very, very high number of NDEers will become Buddhists.
Now this makes one question what heaven and hell truly is. Perhaps we know it right in the moment that we truly cross over.
That's right.
Personally, I'm not ready yet to do that.
Me neither. I've got too much work to do.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know yet, but yeah, okay, fine. So, from your point of view, in a nutshell, what is the afterlife?
Well, I think the bottom line is consciousness. I think that we are somehow connected to the consciousness of the universe. And we are also connected to the consciousness that we call God or Source or whatever. And there's a direct link because, and this is science I'm talking, it's in my next book, the one that, I'm not sure if it's in the book that you're reading or if it's in my next one that I just finished. That's not out yet.
Science alike. I'm going to read that, sure.
Sorry about that. But that is the number one, and I don't know, oneness is starting to wear out because people use it in so many different ways. That and to me, oneness, one can't. As soon as you do something else with one, you don't have one anymore. So. But there is only one consciousness that is experiencing all of this, and that is us. We are a part of that.
Like, as if our energy is a part or a radar in this cosmic galactic library.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Lynn, do you think that science will provide, well, proof or plausible proof for the existence of the afterlife soon?
Not anytime soon, no.
Why not?
Absolutely. Because, and I can understand it too, because I actually really respect science and understand why. Because they have to look at things black and white. They have to have tests that are provable over and over, otherwise it's not science. So I truly understand that, but that's not going to happen with death experiences, because it's not something you can prove over and over again.
Lynn, I see that the hour is almost over, that we are really running out of time. And so I'd like to thank you for having this tremendous, intriguing, fascinating conversation about these topics I can go hours and hours talking about. But before we close out, can you tell where we can find more information about your books? Because you also have talks, you give talks, perhaps even maybe where people can drop their questions when they have for you.
Sure. I have a website that's pretty like I've got almost everything that I do there. And it is lynnrussell.com, so it's not very hard to find. And Lynn K. Russell, sorry, Lynn K. You must have the K. And the reason why I use the K is because there's a bazillion Lynn Russells. I should find me. So that's the main place to find me. I'm on Lynn Russell on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram, but I can't figure out how that works.
No, me neither. Me neither. I stopped working or just searching for any button there. No.
Yeah, I don't know how it works, so I don't go there. Anyway, that's where you find me.
Thank you all for tuning in this week on The Next Truth, where science and myth meet. Make sure to visit our website, www.nexttruth.com. That is nexttruth, all in one word.com. And let us know what you think about our podcast. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we would appreciate a rating on our website in the section The Next Truth Podcasts. Or if you would simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us too. I am Maria Anna van Driel with The Next Truth. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode.